to-do list system. Welcome to another episode. There are many videos on creating a to-do list that you could otherwise watch. Thank you for tuning in, but I promise you will love what's coming your way. I hope you are healthy, happy, and in high spirits. I pray your family is doing wonderfully well and your friends are with you when you need them. We have all created a to-do list only to see them grow longer and longer. Instead of crossing off items, we see it extending. It is very demotivating. Why do I create a to-do list when I am going to fail to get through my list? What is the primary purpose of a to-do list? You may think the purpose of a to-do list is to get things done, which, in my opinion, is not entirely correct. The sole purpose is to organize your tasks and get everything out of your mind in one place to prioritize so you don't miss the important stuff. For a long time, I needed to understand the purpose of a to-do list. I always thought it was a tool or a method to help me complete every task. But now I'm clear that my task list is not a tool for getting things done, but a method to focus on high value tasks. A tangible list on paper or digital format is much easier to manage than ideas floating around in my mind. It is crucial you grasp this delicate nuance as it will prevent you from misinterpreting the purpose of your to-do list and you won't use it ineffectively. You need to convert your simple to-do list into a powerful system, assigning critical properties to each task that will prompt you to take action. Once I have shared my workflow, I will elaborate on the components of the workflow that form the core of a solid to-do list system. My to-do list includes projects, actions, tasks, tiny tasks, daily task or tiny task list or daily to-do list, weekly reviews, deadlines, reasons, and time estimates. Please note, I call a to-do list a system that is more powerful than a simple to-do list. I also use multiple to-do lists to be more effective. Let's dive into my workflow first. I capture everything into a master to-do list. It is a rolling repository of every task I can think of, regardless of its size, scope, priority, deadline, and the time required to complete it. The purpose of this list is to capture the myriad tasks swimming in my head, saving me the effort of remembering them. From the master to-do list, I sort, sift, and organize tasks based on their scope and context into four categories. The first category is projects. If an item requires more than two steps, it is a project that can and should be broken down into subtasks. Number two, individual tasks. Any actionable task broken down into its simplest form becomes an individual task. Individual tasks and projects work together to form the core of my productivity system. Number three, tiny to-do list. Any task that takes less than 15 minutes goes in my tiny to-do list. Whenever I have extra time, I complete these tasks in batches. I never make them part of my daily to-do list. So the fourth one is my daily to-do list. From the task list, which came from the master task list, I choose 3 or 4 tasks that I want to accomplish today and add them to my daily to-do list the night before. If something is so urgent that has to be done right now, I treat it as an emergency. I do a weekly review every Saturday for 1 hour and prepare for the next week. I also maintain an archive of all my completed tasks. It makes me feel good. Let me unpack this workflow for you now to understand the various components. Start with a why. The only reason to do something is if it is worth doing. The task should take you closer to achieving your goals. Otherwise, why bother to complete a specific task? You must have a valid reason. How often have you failed to complete tasks? Usually, you fail to complete tasks because they appear to you of little importance. Another reason is that the task needs to be attached to a specific goal you want to achieve. I have a simple policy to get through my to-do list by ascribing a strong why to each item. I must have a reason for the thing to qualify to be in my task list. I write the reason down next to the task. A reason written next to the task is more tangible than something fuzzy in my mind. For example, I have a to-do item on my list that says to spend time with my son on Saturday. Writing down the reason to check how he's doing with his studies or what's happening in his personal life will make the task more meaningful. I have compelling reasons to act when I write the why next to each task. Taking action conveys to me progress, which is motivating. Writing the reason next to your action item is one of the defining qualities of a robust to-do list system. Adopting it in your to-do list management style will make a huge difference. Hopefully, you are enjoying this video and I invite you to like it and subscribe. Leave a comment and share it with your friends. They will thank you. Thanks. So, the next one is break down projects. You have heard the phrase, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Before I move further, I want to highlight how I define projects. I think I mentioned, but let me repeat. Inspired by David Allen's concept, any activity that involves more than 2 steps, I treat them as a project. Otherwise, I treat them as individual tasks. The only way to complete any project is to break it down into smaller parts or tasks. Why do so many tasks remain unfinished? Because technically, they are projects. They are large in scope to be completed in one attempt and make you procrastinate. I lose motivation when I don't break the projects into smaller, manageable tasks. The task looks so big and overwhelming. For example, one of my task list items is creating a video on how to build a solid to-do list. This task is a project rather than an individual activity. If I view it as a single activity, I need help knowing where to start. I feel overwhelmed. I usually break it down into smaller parts. Here is how I will break it down into smaller tasks. Research keyword. Create engaging thumbnail. Write effective video description and title. Explore relevant tags. Research core topic. Write content. Explore persuasive call to action. Each task provides more focus and can be completed in less time than creating a video as a single to-do item. You will also notice that each job is actionable. I don't do this task in any sequence because it depends on my creativity, capacity, and focus on the day. But all these tasks complete that project. I ensure that my to-do lists are limited to actionable tasks, not projects. When I break projects into smaller tasks, it makes them seem more doable. It allows me to focus my attention according to their priority and value and how much time they would need to complete. For example, writing the main content would take much longer than creating appropriate tags. You get the idea. If an item requires more than 2 steps, It is a project. I break it down into smaller tasks. Breaking them down allows me to focus better and get important work done more quickly. You will also notice that I start each task with a verb. Verbs have the power to prompt you to act. Put them in front of your to-do items and you will be more inclined to get them done. When you phrase the task with the verb, the job comes alive. It goes from being a line item on your to-do list to becoming an actionable assignment. This habit comes from my instructional design and consulting experience where every learning objective must have an action verb. The verb triggers something in my brain, nudging me to focus on completing the task. For example, if I find an activity on my to-do list that says blog, it lacks any emotional or motivational power. However, I can fix that by adding an action verb before it. For example, start researching the XYZ topic. Notice how I added two action verbs before the task, which tells me exactly what to do. There is no ambiguity. There is no guesswork. The action verb before tells me exactly what needs to be done. Action verb also describes how much time I will need to complete this task. I am still determining how much time I will need to write a blog post, but I can certainly come up with an estimate of how much time I will need to complete the research. So, when you are choosing a verb, be very specific. There is value in selecting the precise verb that defines the task. Assign a deadline to each task. Parkinson's law. Work expands so as to fill the time available for its completion. Deadlines are the enemy of procrastination. Without a deadline, there is no pressure to act. Any action item without a deadline is just a wish list. Therefore, every task on my to-do list has a deadline. The date is flexible depending on the priority and urgency of the task. Attaching a deadline to a to-do item makes it easier to know which task to select for my daily to-do list. I make sure each deadline is realistic. It doesn't make sense to assign everything urgent. Doing so will only cause anxiety, frustration, and discouragement. When I combine reason and deadline, it motivates me to act. A deadline without rationale is less effective because the sense of urgency looks artificial, and a deadline date looks arbitrarily chosen, which has less force to trigger action. I also give myself less time than I need. Parkinson's law states that work expands so as to fill the time available for its completion. Historically, I have seen that I give myself too much time to get things done. You can audit yourself and see if you are being too lenient with yourself. There was a time I used to dread deadlines, but now I have realized deadlines are the enemies of procrastination. I look forward to applying deadlines to every task on my task list. It helps me avoid distractions and provide motivation, inspiration, and energy to move and complete my most important work. Estimate the amount of time each task will take. I should know how long each to-do item on my master task list will take to finish. When I allocate time for each task, it allows me to choose tasks for my daily list based on my available time for that day. Knowing how much time it will take to complete each task helps me to create a realistic to-do list. There was a time when I needed to pay more attention to this step and I had difficulty making a daily to-do list. It would be best if you had a realistic idea about time required to complete a specific task. Create a separate tiny task list. For any task that takes less than 15 minutes, I classify them as a small or tiny task. The idea is to batch them together and address them during a single work session. When I address these tiny tasks intermittently throughout my day, they become distractions for me. They interrupt my workflow, breaking my momentum and destroying my creativity. They tempt me to multitask, resulting in task switching costs. I set aside a separate work session to address them collectively. When I have extra time, I choose a few to work on and cross the items off my list as I complete them. Create a daily to-do list. I also use a daily task list to decide how to allocate my time and attention daily. This list will have items I must complete before the end of the day and is limited to 4 to 5 things. At the end of each day, I create the next day's to-do items from the individual task list. This simple step of creating a daily to-do list is critical. It can mean the difference between getting high-value work done on time and becoming overwhelmed by a mountain of tasks with varying priorities and deadlines. Usually in my daily to-do list, most tasks take more than 15 minutes to complete. If a particular job requires more than a few hours, I might restrict my list to just 1 or 2 items. Tiny tasks usually don't belong to my daily to-do list. If there are quite a few tiny tasks, I might do them in batches rather than clogging my daily to-do list and overwhelming myself. Whether this makes sense to you or not, when I work from more than 2 or 3 lists, it is less discouraging because there is end in sight. The daily task list takes the limelight. It is limited in scope and motivates me to complete the task, reduce stress, and remove the overwhelming sense. There is something positive about the daily to-do list because it conveys my day has been productive. Completing each day's to-do list motivates and inspires me. When I have a joyous feeling day after day, it spirals into a momentum. A tiny task doesn't belong to my daily to-do list. I save space in my daily to-do for high-value tasks requiring more time. Weekly reviews. One of the most important things I do to keep my master to-do list clean is regularly purging tasks that are no longer needed or align with my goals. Wishes, unclear, and trivial tasks never go into my to-do list. Task management becomes much less complicated when irrelevant items are removed from the list. I conduct weekly checks every Saturday. I set aside about 1 hour. I gather and review the to-do list against context and deadlines. I do a brain dump of all the tasks and projects in my head and quickly capture them on my master to-do list. I break down new projects into individual tasks. I review my calendar for the coming week. I create a daily to-do list based on my capacity. At first, it may seem a lot of work, but it is a good investment. I focus my limited time on high-value items. Complexity is the enemy of productivity. Your to-do system aims to help you get things done on time. The goal is to increase your efficiency, not the other way around. Try whatever works for you. Adopt, adapt, or abandon the techniques that make sense to you or they don't make sense to you. I have a straightforward workflow that leverages the power of multiple to-do lists and leans on few productivity strategies like Getting Things Done by David Allen, the Important Urgent Matrix by Eisenhower, Warren Buffett's strategy, and Ivy Lee method. If you want to learn more about these strategies, remember to watch my video on personal productivity systems. I hope you found some valuable ideas to create an effective to-do list. You have a ton of things to do. It is not possible to remember all in your head. The solution is to create an effective to-do list system. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel before you go. Please spread the word if you enjoyed watching this video and believe in my work. It would motivate me to create more content. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye for now.